All right, everybody. The frame needs one more major tube left, the down tube here. There it is. If we put it on the print here, more or less correct. So we need this one tube right here that's going to fit there. That's this tube. And I've already mitered one end. You can see it's a double miter. And that's because we have two tubes already intersecting right here. So that's going to fit in there. But now the trick is to make it simultaneously fit here and at our top tube. And this is a very important joint, so we want to get it right. So there's some tools we have to help us with this. What I have here is just an angle gauge. And I use that to measure my angle here. I can store that angle by locking that gauge. So now we've got our angle. We've got our tube. And then we're going to cut it with a regular hole saw. This is the same type of hole saw you would use in carpentry. There's probably better tools for this, but this does work. And we want to make sure that this is going to pass through our tube at the exact same angle and diameter as our head tube here. So this is representing the head tube and has to pass through this down tube right here. Okay, so we've got our angle measured, we've got our correct diameter. Now we have a fixture that I've made. This is custom made. We can use our angle gauge to set our angle of our cut. So if our cutter is going to come down this way, then we set our angle here of the fixture. And then we're going to install the tube into our fixture like so. Just give it a little snug. And so that will install in the vise on our end mill, and we'll be able to install our hole saw, and then we'll be able to make a cut at the angle we want. And that deserves what? Tutorial time. This is my nasty old end mill. So we've got our hole saw. I happen to have a little arbor here that you can mount a hole saw to. Piece of cake. So then we take our cutting fixture, mitering fixture. We have to move ourselves a little bit here. And the beauty of this is it sits into the vise and sits level on the level of the vise. So we know we're in plane with our mill. Tighten that up. So I've made a mark at a measurement where I know my cut has to pass through. I'll lock the head in place, and then I'll center my hole saw on my tube so that it'll be centered this way. And then we'll make our cut all the way through the tube. And that deserves an Oreo. This direction, left to right, this is centered on our tube. So I've got a little mark here that shows where the perfect cut theoretically would be, but I've actually come backwards a little bit from that. Because this is the last tube that's going into a triangle shape, we have to miter both ends at the same time. So one end's already mitered, so I have to miter this end to match perfectly a triangle that already exists. So what you do is you sneak up on it. That's a common term in machining, sneaking up on it. So we're going to make a cut that we know is too far away. We test it for fit. We make a really small adjustment if we need to, cut it, test it for fit, and on and on. I'll probably do this 5 times to get this right. But it is, in welding this kind of thin tube, it's worth the investment of time to get those miters as perfect as you possibly can. So I do have a little cutting oil here that I'll be applying on the hole saw as it's going. And safety first. Our end mill has been unplugged the whole time we're setting up the adjustments and stuff. And safety continues. Hearing protection, this is kind of noisy. So let's take the first little bit of our cut and see how it goes. name of the game on this is patience. So I'm going to come in really delicately to my material and see how my cut's going, if there's anything I need to adjust before I try to cut the whole depth. That looks good. I think we're going to go ahead and go from there. Yeah, that looks good to me. We're not on our line yet. We're maybe a couple of millimeters away from my cut line. That might have been a little too close, but I'm pretty confident it's going to work. So I'll set up and make the whole cut, and we'll watch that happen. Okay guys, we completed our cut. I've already done one test fit. I've made a second cut based on that test fit, and let's see how it looks. The print is gone because really there's nothing we can really do to match the print anymore at this point, so it's just the existing frame and this one tube. That's looking pretty darn good. And with just a little compression, I think that's going to be what we want. That looks really good on the head tube end there. You can see it's really nicely fitted all the way around. One thing I didn't mention earlier, notice there's a hole here, there's another hole here. Obviously my tube is going to cover those holes, but this is called venting. And the idea is that with a steel tube, you never really, if you can help it, you never really want to fully enclose it. You want to let those two holes let any air and vapor escape out of this tube. And for something like a mountain bike that's going to be out in the weather, inevitably some water vapor is going to get inside of the tubing. So you want to leave a path for it to at least get back out. So all of the vents that are inside here, eventually they all escape here. So this is going to be pointed downwards when the bike is in its normal position. And if you look, most steel bicycles will have a hole like that or somewhere on the frame. I have to have a very high seat post because I'm tall, and so we're going to actually put a brace right about there to brace up this high seat post there. So we'll have to do another double miter on that one to meet here, but we're probably not going to show that. So all that's left to do, then we'll be ready to go on to the rear triangle, which is all of this multiplied by 2 and with multiple compound miters. So this is actually the easy part, believe it or not. And with that result, I'm confident to say that we deserve it.